The story begins with a young boy named Haruto was bidding farewell to his childhood friend, Miyaru, as he went on a journey. Miyaru couldn't help but shed tears, pleading for him to stay. In a sudden flashback, Haruto, reminisces about riding a bus. Tragically, the bus collides with a train, and Haruto and the other passengers meet a tragic fate. As he regains consciousness, Haruto finds himself in the body of a malnourished boy named Ryo. His memories are a jumbled mix, leaving him uncertain if he's still Haruto from Japan or this wretched-looking boy, Ryo. Confused and wondering if it's just a feverish dream, he encounters a group of men in the room who call him Ryo. They selfishly enjoy their food, ignoring the starving Ryo and complaining about his odor. Ignoring their taunts, Ryo focuses on finding food and discovers berries in the bushes. Memories of being a 20-year-old student from Japan resurface, but Ryo knows he must embrace his current identity as a poor boy in Beltran. His mission to avenge his mother's murder drives him forward, remembering their humble life as immigrants with dark hair. In the slums, Ryo encounters 4 people in white robes looking for a girl with purple hair. Among them is Celia, a white-haired girl who politely questions him. Though he hasn't seen the girl, Celia senses Ryo's strong magical powers and thanks him with a bag of coins before leaving. Back at the house, Ryo is attacked by a masked man. Fortunately, the bag of coins protects him, but as he prepares to retaliate, time stops, and a pink-haired girl appears in an ethereal projection. She teaches him how to use magic, and Ryo combines this newfound power with memories of martial arts from Haruto, knocking out the masked man. Investigating the noises, Ryo finds a purple-haired girl in a bag. She asks him to take her to the royal castle but faints upon seeing the unconscious kidnapper. Ryo agrees and heads towards the castle, but the people from earlier mistake him for a kidnapper, leading to his interrogation. In the house where Ryo was attacked, royal guards inspect the scene, finding the masked man conscious. A mysterious hooded man intervenes, causing the suspect's demise. In the castle dungeon, Charles, the vice captain of the knights, tortures Ryo, accusing him of kidnapping the princess. Ryo maintains his innocence. The purple-haired girl, Princess Flora, wakes up in her room, and Celia and Vanessa fill her in on the events. Convinced of Ryo's innocence, she requests to see him in the dungeon. Celia and Vanessa are shocked at Charles' brutality towards Ryo, and Flora uses her magical abilities to set him free. Ryo passes out but later awakens in a palace room where Celia apologizes for the guards' actions. The king and queen thank him for saving Princess Flora. As a gesture of gratitude, Ryo is offered admission to the prestigious Beltran Royal Academy, which he gladly accepts. However, Ryo feels out of place among the noble students due to his commoner background. Seeking help, he turns to Celia, a teacher at the academy, and asks her to teach him how to read and write. Despite her young age, Celia is exceptionally brilliant and assists Ryo with his studies. In the midst of tutoring, Celia notices that Ryo excels in assignments, and she reveals that Princess Christina is the only other classmate with the same level of accuracy. To help Ryo improve, Celia suggests some children's novels for him to read. During combat lessons and sword fighting, Ryo's martial arts knowledge from his past life as Haruto shines through, impressing the instructor who offers him a spot in the Royal Knights. Ryo politely declines, choosing to focus on his new life. 5 years pass, and Ryo is selected to represent the Beltran Royal Academy in a tournament against the Royal Guards. However, another student named Alphonse is unhappy with the choice, belittling Ryo due to his peasant background. Despite such treatment, Ryo remains determined and continues to make tremendous progress at the academy. One day, Ryo helps Celia in the library, and she praises his growth. They share a lighthearted moment, teasing each other about their appearances. Ryo confides in Celia about his desire to travel to his parents' homeland in the Guma region after graduation. Feeling ostracized by his peers, he longs to discover his roots and embark on a new journey. The exhibition tournament between the Beltran Royal Academy and the Royal Guards begins, with Ryo facing Charles, the vice captain who had tormented him 5 years ago. Ryo remains unfazed by Charles' attempts to intimidate him and faces him with determination for revenge. In the intense duel, Ryo counters Charles' attacks and emerges victorious, leaving Charles disappointed. After the match, Charles confides in an ominous blue-haired man, the ambassador from the Praxia Empire. The ambassador takes an interest when he learns of Ryo's involvement in the incident with Princess Flora 5 years ago. This ambassador is the same hooded figure who had crushed the red crystal, leading to the demise of the masked assailant. In another class, Celia teaches about magic, and the students attempt to cast a spell to create a sphere of light. Ryo faces ridicule from other royal students when he struggles with the same type of magic they use. However, Ryo possesses a unique and special kind of magic different from theirs. He chooses to keep this ability hidden to avoid unnecessary attention. In the days following the incident in the forest, Ryo is nowhere to be found, and he is believed to be missing at the school. Celia overhears Duke Stuart's father announcing publicly that Ryo pushed Princess Flora off the cliff, even though he knows it was actually Stuart who did it. Later, Ryo discreetly visits Celia in her lab, and she's relieved to see that he's okay. She informs him about the Duke's plot and is furious about it, but Ryo remains unfazed and believes that nobody would believe him. To avoid further problems, he decides to travel to the Iguma region, where his ancestors lived, and promises to meet Celia again in the future. After saying his goodbyes, Rio embarks on his journey. After traveling for 3 days, Rio arrives in the kingdom of Galark and reaches a market town to get some food. Unbeknownst to him, someone is following him. Once he's done buying food and condiments, he continues his journey through the forest. There, he encounters an unconscious beast girl. When she wakes up, she tries to spit a poison spike at him, but Rio kicks her away and realizes that she has animal ears, making her a beast girl. Using his magic, he neutralizes the poison. The beast girl, named Latifa, declares that she wants to kill him and attacks him with her knives, but Rio manages to subdue her and calm her down with a spell. Rio notices a collar of submission on Latifa's neck and quickly removes it using a magic spell he learned from a book. Through a flashback, it is revealed that Latifa died in the same train accident as Haruto and got reincarnated as a beast girl in the fantasy world. She was captured by the Huguenot family and mistreated by Stuart Daly. After Rio removes the collar, Latifa thanks him with tears of joy. She doesn't know much about her master, but Rio quickly connects the dots and realizes that Stuart from the Royal Academy is the same Stuart who mistreated her. Latifa promises not to try to kill Rio anymore, and he sets her free from her restraints. She asks to follow him on his journey as they both head east, leading to a place called the Wilderness, where beast people and demi-humans live together in peace. Rio agrees, and they continue their journey together, facing dangerous adventures along the way. One night, Latifa starts talking in her sleep about her parents in Tokyo, and Rio realizes that she died in the same accident as him. However, he chooses not to reveal this fact to her. Some nights later, when Latifa has a nightmare, Rio calms her down with a magic spell. He notices the fire outside their camp suddenly goes out, and he sees a large wolf that disappears into a blinding ray of light. 3 demi-humans surround their hut and mistake Rio for kidnapping Latifa, leading to an attack that renders him unconscious. Rio eventually wakes up tied to a bed by the demi-humans. Latifa wakes up too and rushes to check on him. Realizing their mistake, the demi-human girls apologize and remove his restraints. Ursula, among them, also apologizes and invites him to stay in the room to recover. The next morning, Rio finds himself in the village where the demi-humans took him. Ursula, the leader, shows him around, taking him to the ward tree, where Dryas, the spirit of mighty trees, resides. Then, they meet Dominic, a dwarf, and Sildora, an elf, in a conference room. The elders apologize for the misunderstanding and thank Rio for saving Latifa from slavery. As a gesture of gratitude, they ask what he would like in exchange. Rio requests to stay in the village and learn about spirit arts and traditions. The elders happily accept his requests. Later, they encounter a green-haired girl named Dryas, the spirit of the world tree, who senses Rio's spirit inside him. She presumes that he made a contract with a spirit, although Rio doesn't remember anything of the sort. Dryas confirms his immense magical energy and tells him there's a spirit sleeping inside him. Rio is then taken to a house where Latifa and the other demi-human girls are waiting for him. They all have dinner together, and Rio and Latifa are informed they'll be staying with Sarah, Orphea, and Alma. In the meantime, Rio learns the spirit arts and combat from the people in the village while getting acquainted with them and helping with daily tasks. Elsewhere, the ambassador from Proxia, Reese, rides a griffin with a blonde-haired young man to the entrance of a cave. Reese goes into the cave while the young man waits outside. After a while, Reese emerges with a huge wyvern egg and hands it to the young man. They continue their journey with the egg. A year passes since Rio settled in the forest village, and a feast is prepared for the Grand Spirit Festival night. Rio and the villagers enjoy the feast and have fun together. Meanwhile, Reese and the young man arrive in a forest to rest for the night. Reese gives the man a red pill, promising that if he swallows it, they'll know his location at all times. The young man swallows it without hesitation, and Reese leaves to inspect the area, leaving him to watch over the egg. Back in the forest village, Rio takes Latifa for a stroll in the forest. During their time together, he confides in her that his stay in the village is coming to an end, and he intends to continue his journey to the land of his ancestors. He expresses concern for the danger ahead and hesitates to let her follow him, not wanting to put her in harm's way. However, Latifa becomes upset, expressing her desire to be with him. Meanwhile, in the village, the elders call for a meeting as they sense a large swarm of wyverns heading in their direction. In the wyvern cave, Reese steals the remaining eggs and transports them elsewhere. The demi-humans spot the blonde boy in the forest and decide to investigate. He becomes intimidated and flees on a griffin, but the wyverns start chasing after him, heading toward the village. In the cave, Reese crushes a red stone similar to the one the young boy swallowed earlier, causing the boy to die in midair. Observing the situation, Sarah summons a spirit wolf, and Alma rides it to confront the wyverns. In the meantime, heartbroken Latifa wanders through the forest and encounters the wyvern egg dropped by the young man, which breaks before her. The largest wyvern appears, and in a fit of rage, it tries to kill Latifa with a massive fireball. Alma comes to her rescue, summoning a large lion spirit, but even their combined efforts fail to defeat the wyvern. Latifa gets trapped, but just as the wyvern is about to attack, Rio appears and saves her, flying her to safety. As the situation unfolds, Rio and Latifa find themselves in the midst of a perilous and unpredictable journey where danger, spirits, and powerful forces converge. Their bonds with each other and the spirits they encounter will play a crucial role in determining their fate as they face new challenges and continue to uncover the mysteries of this fantasy world. Ryo, using his enhanced powers, takes on the wyvern in a fierce battle, countering its fiery attack with a powerful energy ball, ultimately defeating it. The other wyverns retreat, leaving the demi-humans astonished at Ryo's prowess. The next day, Latifa finally accepts Ryo's departure and reveals that she was once a human from Japan who died and reincarnated into this fantasy world. Ryo acknowledges his own reincarnation and bids farewell to the elders and villagers who gift him various items, including a mithril sword, armor made from wyvern skin, potions, medicines, food, and a magical storage device. 2 weeks after arriving in the Iguma region, Ryo still hasn't found any information about his parents. He arrives in the village of Karasuki, where he meets Chief Yuba, who turns out to be his grandmother. Yuba confirms that Ryo's parents, Zen and Iam, had left the village years ago for reasons she can't disclose yet, and asks him to stay until she's ready to reveal more. Ryo agrees and discovers that both Yuba and his cousin Ruri can also use spirit magic. Over time, Ryo helps with chores and becomes popular among the villagers. He accompanies Ruri's friend Seo and her brother Shin for hunting in the forest. While Shin struggles to catch anything, Ryo displays incredible talent as a hunter, which triggers Shin's jealousy. Despite this, Ryo continues to assist the villagers and becomes well-liked. Yuba asks Ryo for a favor to escort traders traveling to the royal capital to sell rice. While agreeing to help, they overhear a heated argument between Shin and an arrogant man named Gon. Gon, the son of the leader, demands to stay at Yuba's house while his cart is being repaired for transporting goods to the capital. During a heated argument, God boldly proclaims that one day he will marry Ruri, considering she's Yuba's only heir. This statement angers Shin, who impulsively attacks Gon with a punch. Unfortunately, Shin's efforts are in vain as he is swiftly overpowered and choked by the bigger man. Yuba intervenes and stops the one-sided fight, assuming it was a misunderstanding. She allows Gon to stay in a guest house until his cart is fixed, to keep him away from Ruri's potential harm. She also lets Seo stay in her house. Later that night, Ryo meets with Ruri and gives her a redstone amulet, explaining that it will protect her. In the guest house, Gon spends time with his slacker friends, drinking and chatting. They reveal that they intentionally broke the cart to have an excuse to stay in Karasuki village while plotting something wicked. The following day, a kind man named Hayat arrives on a horse. He introduces himself as a tax examiner and, with his helpers, inspects the villagers' crops. Yuba hosts him for dinner that night. However, Gon sneaks into Ruri and Seo's room while they are asleep, attempting to carry out his nefarious plan. Ryo arrives in time to prevent it, as the amulet he gave Ruri allowed him to sense Gon's presence. Ryo confronts Gon and severely beats him, driven not only by the invasion of the girl's room but also by reminding him of the man who killed his mother. Hayat arrives to heal Gon's injuries and promises to take him to a prison camp the next day. Lost in thought, Ryo realizes he has forgotten about his mission to avenge his mother due to the blending of Haruto's memories and personality with his own. The next day, he apologizes for his violent behavior, and everyone thanks him for saving the vulnerable girls. As promised, Hayat takes Gon and his companions to the prison camp. Yuba gives him a letter to deliver to his father, Lord Juki. Meanwhile, Shin, Dola, Seo, and Ryo embark on their journey to the royal capital to sell their rice. Upon arriving in the capital, they find a place to stay, while Dola, Shin, and Ryo go to a restaurant for drinks. Afterward, Shin personally thanks Ryo for rescuing his sister from Gon. Shin decides to take Seo to the market and buys her a hair decoration as a thank you gift. This kind gesture leads Seo to realize her growing feelings for Ryo, making her question if she's falling in love with him. Meanwhile, Hayat delivers Yuba's letter to Lord Juki, which surprises him greatly. He invites Ryo to his house, where he reveals that he and his wife Kyoko once served as attendants to Ryo's mother, Iam, who was once the daughter of the royal family of Karasuki. 20 years ago, during the war with the Rokuran Kingdom, Zen, Ryo's father, served as a soldier in the Karasuki army. His exceptional sword fighting and combat skills caught the attention of Lord Bucky, who suggested him to become a guard for the Karasuki royal family. After joining the royal guards, Zen's love story with Iam began to blossom. At that time, the Karasuki kingdom initiated a peace treaty with the Rokuran Kingdom, aiming to bring an end to the long-standing conflict between the two nations. During the signing of the peace treaty, the prince of the Rokuran Kingdom became captivated by Iam and ordered his attendant to kidnap her. Zen, however, intervened just in time to save Iam by knocking out the prince. Tragically, the attack accidentally resulted in the prince's death. News of the prince's death reached the Rokuran Kingdom, infuriating their ruler. He ordered that Zen be executed immediately and demanded Iam's hand in marriage as the sole condition for maintaining peace between the two nations. With no other option, Zen and Ayam had to flee the kingdom together. Ryo, listening to the story told by King Juki, found himself astonished to learn that the king and queen were his grandparents. The following day, he visited the royal palace to meet them and introduced himself. During the meeting, Ryo recounted the heart-wrenching tale of how his mother Ayam was brutally murdered by a red-haired adventurer named Lucius. He remembered his early childhood and how Lucius had once been helpful to them after his father's death. However, one day, Lucius suddenly attacked Ryo and forced him to drink a mysterious potion. Ayam bravely intervened to save her son but tragically lost her life at the hands of Lucius, who wore a sinister expression throughout the ordeal. This event completely changed Ryo's life, leaving him in the slums until he eventually encountered Princess Flora. With a determination to avenge his mother, Ryo is supported by King Hamura to prepare for his quest. As part of his preparation, Ryo is tasked to spar with Duki, Karasuki's strongest warrior. The intense duel initially appears to be evenly matched, but when King Hamura increases the stakes, Ryo surprises everyone with his clever water spell that counters Duki's powerful attack, leading to his victory. Impressed by Ryo's display, King Hamura concludes that no further training is required. Ryo returns to the small village, revealing to Ruri that they are cousins and that he is a prince of the Karasuki kingdom. He shares his plan to leave the village in a year to return to the land where he grew up, but in the meantime, he cherishes spending more time with them and the villagers. Over the next 6 months, Ryo continues to assist the villagers with various tasks. One day, while planting rice on the farm, Ryo opens up to Seo about his upcoming journey. She confesses her love to him, but Ryo believes they cannot be together as he must leave the village soon. Seo breaks down in tears, trying to hide her emotions until Ruri interrupts them. Ryo realizes the impact of his decision on their hearts but remains firm in his resolve. As time passes, Ryo practices his spirit arts daily, growing stronger with each passing day. When he feels more confident, Seo takes him into the forest for a private conversation. She once again expresses her love for him, but Ryo gently explains that their paths are not aligned, as he has to embark on his journey soon. Once again, Ryo finds himself breaking another heart as Seo immediately starts crying upon learning that he is leaving the village. Ruri interrupts them, making Ryo feel the weight of the emotions in the room. Over the next 6 months, Seo dedicates herself to practicing her spirit arts daily, hoping to grow stronger and join Ryo on his journey. Despite her determination, Ryo remains steadfast in his decision, apologizing to her while acknowledging the pain he's causing. When the time comes, Ryo bids farewell to Yuba, Ruri, and the villagers before setting off on his journey alone. At the village's exit, Seo waits for him, finally coming to terms with his departure. They say their goodbyes and promise to meet again someday. Continuing on his journey, Ryo makes a stop at the forest village, where he reunites with Latifa and the other demi-humans. Embracing the warm welcome, Ryo decides to stay in the village for a few months. During his stay, Ryo comes up with a brilliant idea to build a mobile house that he can carry in his space-time storage device. Dominic, impressed by the idea, offers to build the house for him. One day, Ryo wakes up to find a strange, naked pink-haired girl lying beside him in his bed. The girl reveals herself as a spirit who made a contract with him but has no recollection of their past or even her name. As they communicate telepathically, Ryo promises not to disclose anything about his past life to anyone. He decides to name the spirit girl Asia, after beautiful springtime in the beast people's language. Asia then uses her spirit magic to create a dress for herself. When Ryo sees her, memories of Mahiro, his childhood friend when he was Haruto, flood his mind. Surprisingly, Asia reveals that she excels in all elements of spirit magic, a rare and extraordinary talent. Despite this revelation, neither Ryo nor Dryas knows the reason for Asia's memory loss. While puzzled, they accept her into the village, and Asia's presence brings newfound joy and energy to the community. Ryo decides to challenge Ishia to a friendly sparring match. During their intense battle, Ryo utilizes all of his skills and magical attacks, but it becomes evident that they are evenly matched, as Ishia adeptly counters every one of his moves, mirroring his fighting techniques flawlessly. After their spirited duel, Dryas takes it upon herself to become Ishia's mentor, imparting her extensive knowledge about spirits to the eager young spirit girl. As days pass, Ishia becomes more and more accustomed to her life in the forest village. Eventually, Dominic completes the construction of Ryo's mobile house. Surya reveals that he will be leaving the village in 2 days, and before he departs, the village elders bestow gifts upon him. This time, Ursula gives him a teleportation device, allowing him to easily return to the village whenever he wishes. Sildora gifts him earrings that grant him the ability to change his hair color and disguise himself. With heartfelt farewells, Ryo embarks on his journey with Ishia as his companion. Before returning to the land where he grew up, Ryo takes a detour and decides to visit Celia in the kingdom of Beltram. To avoid recognition, Ryo changes the color of his hair, skillfully maintaining a low profile with his clever disguise. Alongside Ishia, he visits a bakery where they overhear people discussing news about a noble's upcoming wedding parade scheduled for the following day. Under the cover of night, Ryo and Ishia clandestinely infiltrate the Royal Academy where Celia serves as a teacher. With finesse, they manage to elude the guards, silently making their way to Celia's lab. However, to their shock and dismay, they discover that the room is empty, just as Rio had left it. Desperate for answers, Rio and Ishia leave the lab and encounter other teachers. Ishia uses her spirit magic to hypnotize one of them, and under her spell, the man reveals the unexpected news that Celia is getting married to Charles, a member of the Royal Guard. Rio, while he was away, receives distressing news that the Kingdom of Beltrum suffered a significant defeat at the hands of the Praxia Empire. The man he hypnotized reveals that Charles initiated peace negotiations with the Praxia Empire after the royal family of Beltrum lost its power due to the Huguenot family's flight from the capital. To secure more power, the House of Arbor arranged a political marriage between the House of Clare and Charles. Hearing this, Rio suspects that Celia might be coerced into the marriage and decides to confront her. Meanwhile, in her room, Celia resigns herself to her fate and prepares to become Charles' property upon marriage. She believes she has no choice and is willing to proceed with the marriage to protect her family. While looking at a letter Rio sent her long ago, Celia still holds feelings for him and wishes to see him one more time. Rio manages to sneak into the Royal Academy and finds his way to Celia's room, surprising her after 4 years of separation. Celia struggles to maintain her composure, and Rio is more concerned about her happiness in the upcoming marriage with Charles. Celia insists she is content with the arrangements, but Rio senses that something is amiss. Before he can elaborate, Celia asks him to leave to avoid any trouble or rumors. After Rio departs, Celia breaks down in tears in her room. The following day, the wedding preparations are in full swing, and Charles introduces Celia to his 6 other wives, who treat her with disdain as she will be the lowest ranked among them. Princess Christina, who sympathizes with Celia's forced marriage, takes her aside to speak privately. Christina reveals that when Duke fled the kingdom, he kidnapped Princess Flora, leading to the Beltran family's loss of respect and power. Christina promises to do anything she can to help Celia whenever the opportunity arises. The wedding parade commences, and the crowds gather to watch. Disguised, Asia and Rio are among the onlookers. As Charles extends his hand to Celia, she recalls her conversation with Rio the previous night, where she dreamt of a different life with him in a distant land. Feeling defeated, she reluctantly takes Charles' hand, believing she will soon be nothing more than a puppet. Suddenly, they hear shouts from the guards to halt. Rio, in disguise, rushes toward the wedding coach. The guards attempt to stop him with a human blockade, but he effortlessly breaks through with a powerful wind attack. The mage squad also tries to restrain him with photon bullets, but Rio evades their attacks with grace and agility. Rio finally reaches the coach, but Charles' elite squad stands in his way. Celia becomes worried, but Charles reassures her, claiming confidence in the squad and referring to the upcoming fight as a show before the ceremony. As Charles brags about his guards, he quickly stops when he witnesses Rio effortlessly defeating them. Still dazed by Rio's abilities, Charles watches as Rio lands a heavy punch on him, causing Charles to fall unconscious. With Charles incapacitated, Rio grabs Celia and holds a knife to her neck, putting on a show for everyone present. The onlookers become enraged, but Rio telepathically communicates with Celia, assuring her that he won't harm her. He reveals that he knows she's not willing to go through with the wedding and asks her if she truly wants to proceed. Rio is determined not to lose someone important to him, drawing strength from memories of his mother. At first, Celia is hesitant, but Rio persuades her to admit her true feelings. She confesses that she wants him to end the wedding and take her away. Hearing her confession, Rio immediately acts on the plan and kidnaps Celia, instructing her to play along with the act. Carrying her in his arms, Rio runs away, pursued by the guards and mages. In the dark alley, Rio hands Celia over to Asia, who plans to escape the royal capital with her and meet up with Rio later at a rendezvous point. Meanwhile, Rio returns to the streets to face off against all the guards, skillfully avoiding lethal force. Alfred, the strongest knight in the kingdom, emerges to challenge Rio with a magic-coated sword. Rio and Alfred engage in a fierce battle, with Rio blocking and dodging Alfred's powerful attacks. Alfred attempts to overpower Rio with a spell-infused attack, but when the dust settles, Rio is nowhere to be found. Alfred orders his men to search for him, while Rio meets up with the girls at the arranged location outside the capital. As they rendezvous, Celia expresses her gratitude to Rio for saving her. Suddenly, a thunderstorm brews, and massive beams of magical light descend from the sky to the ground, appearing all over the land. Asia quickly senses that something is amiss and urges Rio to assist someone in need. Meanwhile, a boy and 2 girls find themselves lost and are subsequently kidnapped by bandits, transported to another world. Fortunately, Rio intervenes just in time, rescuing them from the bandits. To his surprise, one of the individuals he saves turns out to be Naru, but she fails to recognize him.
Haruto shares that Ayase has been his friend since childhood, and she has always loved him deeply. They lived next to each other until circumstances forced Haruto to move away due to a dispute with his wife. Before leaving, Haruto held Ayase's hand and promised her, "When I grow up, I will come back, marry you, and take you away from this place." They made a vow to each other to eventually get married. As time passed, they both grew older. Now, at the high school entrance ceremony, Haruto has become quite handsome. He worked hard to get into the school, but unfortunately, he couldn't join the club. Wanting to return to his old neighborhood, Haruto pressured his father, but due to high expenses, he didn't want to burden him further. Determined to cover his own living expenses, he decided to earn money. From a distance, Haruto saw Takahisa talking to some girls before they left. Shortly after, Aki greeted them, saying it had been a long time. He complimented Satsuki, telling her she had become very beautiful, which made her overjoyed. Satsuki offered to treat them, but then something strange happened. They were transported to another world, confused and unsure of their location. When Satsuki checked her phone, she realized the network was out of coverage. Suddenly, a giant figure approached with the intent to kill them. Haruto rushed to save them, with Aisho telling him they were in the southeast. He arrived quickly, but only found their mobile phone. Meanwhile, the giant had kidnapped the children and planned to sell them in the slave market. Miharu pleaded for their release, but the man couldn't understand her language. As Haruto continued his search, he noticed smoke rising and headed toward the location. The kidnappers acted swiftly, hiding the children behind a curtain. Haruto approached the group, asking if they had seen the owner of the mobile phone. One man claimed to have seen nothing, but Haruto heard the children calling for help. Realizing they were the ones he was searching for, he confronted the gang. The leader ordered his men to kill Haruto, but Haruto unleashed his full strength and skillfully dodged their attacks. Though Haruto initially wanted to capture the leader and negotiate, the situation escalated, and he ended up defeating all the men. One of them tried to strike again, but Haruto stabbed him in the stomach. Haruto then ordered the leader to release the kidnapped children. The leader complied, freeing Sendo and Aki. When Haruto asked if they were the only captives, Sendo mentioned that a girl was still in the car. Haruto used his magic to open the box and found Ayase inside, shocked to see her. Haruto asked Ayase what she was doing there. After rescuing everyone, Haruto and the group began their journey back to town. He spoke with Aisha, informing her that he saved the people she referred to and asking her to find him if she knew his location. She agreed and mentioned bringing Celia with her. Once the conversation ended, Ayase thanked Haruto for his help, saying she didn't know what would have happened without him. She introduced herself and Haruto did the same, omitting his family name. Haruto noticed a resemblance between Aki and someone he once knew. Sendo then revealed that he was Aki's brother, which surprised Haruto, who didn't recall having a younger brother or carrying the Amikawa family name. Haruto wondered if his mother had remarried. To explain, Haruto suggested they rest in a spot in the forest, where he could share more about why he lacked a family name. In the forest, Haruto used his magic to reveal a small rock, explaining that it was more than it seemed. Celia and Aisha arrived, flying through the sky. Celia rushed to check on Haruto and greeted the children, saying that Aisha had told her about them. Haruto introduced Celia, explaining that she had been his teacher and that he owed her a lot. Ayase met Celia, but they struggled to communicate because of the language barrier. Haruto clarified that Ayase didn't speak their language. Then, Aisha acted strangely, kissing each of them on the forehead, leaving everyone confused about what had just happened. Aisha explains that she created a temporary connection between them, allowing her to translate their words in real time. Haruto asks how she did it, but she responds that she can because he understands the languages. If he didn't, she wouldn't be able to. Then, she tells him she's hungry, so Haruto invites everyone to come inside the rock. When they enter, they are shocked by how spacious it is. Haruto informs them that the house even has a bathroom they can use freely. The girls head to the bath together, and Celia reveals that Haruto's real name is Ryo, and Aisha is the spirit connected to him, which explains her ability to translate instantly for them. Masato remarks that they've arrived in a fantasy role, playing world, to which Haruto replies that he didn't play many games in his previous life. So he's unsure. The only difference, Haruto adds, is that unlike a game, there's no reset button. Masato thanks him, saying that without his help, they might have ended up as slaves. Celia also thanks Haruto, exclaiming that the bath was amazing, unlike anything she's experienced before. Haruto, surprised by their new clothes, asks where they got them. Celia explains that Aki gave them the clothes because she thought it would be odd to wear a wedding dress after bathing. The new clothes are light and gentle on the skin, unlike any fabric Celia has seen before. Aki says she bought them for the school entrance ceremony, so they are clean and not dirty. Haruto suggests they buy necessities and offers to cover the daily expenses. They plan to head to Amandi. Celia asks if they could trade her wedding dress for money, but Haruto reassures them that money isn't a concern, and they should relax. As they enjoy their meal, they are amazed by the food and ask if Haruto prepared it all. Haruto explains that the phenomenon known as summoning magic brought them to this world, which differs from his reincarnation into it. Masato recalls Haruto's death in a traffic accident as a university student, which triggered his memories in this world. Haruto confirms this, but adds that his experience might not help them much. Celia brings up the Pillars of Light and the events they've witnessed, suggesting they could be connected to the legend of the Six Sages. Haruto admits the thought crossed his mind, recalling the prophecy of 6 sacred stones glowing after 1,000 years of war, heroes returning, and leading humanity on behalf of the sages. However, he doubts they are the heroes mentioned in the legend. Ayase mentions they were with others before arriving in this world, and wonders if Satsuki and Takahisa also made it. Haruto thinks it's possible but isn't sure. Ayase expresses her concern for them, saying they were lucky Haruto rescued them, but their normal feelings seem meaningless in this world. Later, Aisha approaches Haruto, saying she can't take it anymore and needs to recharge her magic after using a lot of energy. Celia becomes upset with Aisha for asking Haruto to go with her. Ayase offers to tidy up, but Haruto tells them to leave everything as it is.
The scene begins with Haruto and his friends, where Haruto explains that he serves as a source of magical energy for Aisha through their telepathic connection and their pact. Since Zoids could affect any young man, Aisha decides to sleep in the same room as Miharu, who possesses a lot of magical energy. Celia is surprised to learn that Miharu has magical abilities. Haruto explains that Miharu and Aisha will share a room, while Aki and Misato, who are siblings, will also share a room since they do not mind being together. After showing them where they will sleep, Haruto enters his own room. There, he spends the entire night reflecting on how he never expected to meet Miharu in this world. He wonders what she would think if she knew that he holds the memories of Amikawa Hiruta, though he is no longer that person. He now lives as Ryo, having decided long ago to stain his hands with blood to avenge someone. To him, the old Haruto is already dead. Later, Celia enters his room to check if he is awake because she wants to talk. Haruto apologizes for not visiting her sooner, and they sit together to have tea. Celia, who could not ask this in front of everyone, expresses her curiosity about how Haruto has been during their time apart. She also asks where he met Aisha and what he meant when he mentioned his previous life. Haruto asks her to stay calm and promises to explain everything one step at a time. First, he addresses the subject of his past life that came up in conversation with Miharu and the others. Haruto reveals that he has memories of another version of himself. He confirms that he came from the same world as Miharu and the others, which is why he understands their language. He then asks if Celia remembers when she first met him when he was poor. She responds that, of course, she remembers. Haruto explains that he regained the memories of his past life shortly before that moment. In his previous life, his name was Haruto, and he was 20 years old at the time. Celia then understands why Haruto seemed unusually mature for his age when they first met. She admits that being with him now gives her a deep sense of comfort, but she is also worried about her father. She wishes she could let him know that she is doing well. Haruto suggests that she write a letter to her father. Celia agrees and asks him to buy stationery from the Rikka Guild. Haruto advises her to use his alias so that no one at the guild recognizes him. The story then shifts to the capital of the Beltram Kingdom, Beltran, where Charles and Race are discussing recent events. Race had not expected Charles' fiancée to be kidnapped, but Charles informs him that the highwaymen responsible were dealt with and will be interrogated, though there is still no news about Celia's location. Reports suggest that there was a collaborator, and for now, the capital's borders have been closed as a search is underway. The kidnapped girl and the spirit with her have hidden their location, and no one can find them. However, if the prophecy written in the ancient text is fulfilled, a hero has arrived in the kingdom to protect them. Race hopes that the hero will become a loyal ally to their kingdom, though he suspects that the Beltrum kingdom might be hiding another holy stone. Charles agrees and mentions that the stone is with Princess Flora and Duke Huguenot, and they are likely welcoming the hero at that very moment. He adds that if they try to cozy up to the kingdom of Galark, they will be considered traitors. When the kingdom of Galark is mentioned, Race recalls that one of the guests, Liselit Kresha from the Rika Guild, is known as a talented woman. Charles asserts that action must be taken against them soon. Next, we move to the capital of the Rodan region, Rodania, where we meet Hiroki, an ordinary man who was summoned to another world. As he eats a meal, a girl named Rona asks if he needs anything else. Hiroki asks her to sit and eat with him, but she declines, making Hiroki feel guilty for making her stand while he dines. She thanks him for his kindness and leaves. The Duke of Rodania then comments that he never imagined hosting a legendary hero in his home. Hiroki recounts what happened to him. He was living an ordinary life when he was suddenly transported to another world. He found himself before Princess Flora of the Beltrum Kingdom and her guard, Duke Huguenot. Hiroki realizes that this is the beginning of a typical summoning story, and in this world, everyone believes him to be the hero, as foretold by the 6 sages. After 1,000 years since the founding of the Sacred Era, heroes are said to appear wherever holy stones exist. And Hiroki is amazed by what has happened, but when he looks beside him, he sees his sword and realizes that he is indeed a hero. Flora asks for his name, and Hiroki introduces himself as Hiroka. Despite his status as a hero, they treat him like a general worker due to his humble behavior. This makes Hiroki decide to act more superior and express his confusion at being suddenly called a hero. He points out that the sacred stone in Princess Flora's possession is what summoned him, and he wishes to return to his normal life. Duke Huguenot admits that this situation could be seen as kidnapping, which upsets Hiroki, who explains that his life in his own world was forcibly taken from him. Flora apologizes, explaining that the sudden events have also left her shaken. Hiroki reassures her not to blame herself, as he is the one in a difficult situation. At that moment, the Duke's son interrupts, ordering Hiroki to speak respectfully to the princess, but the Duke commands his son to be silent and apologize to Hiroki. The Duke then explains that the situation was a misunderstanding and promises to clarify everything. He asks Hiroki to listen carefully as he details the current state of the kingdom. The scene begins with Haruto and his friends leaving the house to go shopping, except for Eiki and Misato, who stayed behind. Haruto reassures them that the house is protected by a magical barrier, so they should not leave. Ishia takes Celia and flies with her into the sky. Haruto then offers to take Mitharu, and she agrees, amazed by the view as they fly through the air. Haruto remarks that she seems to be enjoying the new perspective from up high. Miharu responds, saying it is a beautiful sight she has never seen before, and that she feels safe as long as she is with him. Celia, flying with Hishia, asks her about Rio. Hishia explains that all of Haruto's memories flow into her through their spiritual pact, where 2 souls are linked. Celia admits that knowing Hishia shares memories with Rio makes her feel a little lonely. Hishia reassures her, saying that Haruto has changed and now relies on others, thanks to Celia being the first to extend a helping hand when he was alone. Celia smiles, promising to continue supporting him just as she did in the past. They arrive at their destination, and Haruto tells Miharu that they will refer to Celia as Cecilia in town and change her hair color since black hair is uncommon. Haruto changes his own appearance and gives earrings to Celia and Miharu. In the bustling commercial city of Galar Kingdom, the group is amazed by the vibrant atmosphere. Celia comments that the city is lively, just as the rumor suggested. They ask Haruto various questions about the area, and he answers, mentioning that the Rika Guild offers a wide variety of food, including pasta similar to what they have on Earth. They decide to buy some later. At the guild, they are greeted by Chloe, who handles visitor services. Haruto asks Chloe to take care of the girls while he leaves for an hour, and Hishia translates for Miharu. Celia suggests they look for clothes, and Chloe encourages them to try on anything they like. Celia and Miharu eagerly explore, trying on several outfits. Miharu compliments Celia, saying that her outfit suits her well. Meanwhile, Haruto is searching for something in the city but is unable to find it. The scene returns to the girls, where Celia requests stationery and Chloe takes her to get some. When Haruto returns, he asks Miharu if she found anything she liked. Miharu hands him some clothes she picked for him, saying she thought they would suit him. Celia is impressed by her taste, and Haruto thanks Miharu, admitting he had been thinking about getting more casual clothes. Chloe informs Haruto that there is a promotion on men's clothing and offers a discount if he buys a set. Haruto remarks that the Rika Guild is skilled at sales and decides to pick out everything he needs. The scene then shifts to the capital of Beltrum, where a maid informs Liselot that the situation is escalating against the kingdom. Liselot speculates that the Beltrum kingdom wants to control information related to recent events, which has made it difficult for her to manage her business. The maid suggests that Liselot take a break from work and enjoy some leisure time. Liselot reflects on how satisfying it is for the kingdom of Galark to ruin Duke Arbor's reputation. The maid reminds her that Aunt Celia is an old friend. Liselot then wonders about the heroes rumored to have appeared during the chaos and mentions that a hero may have been summoned to their kingdom. The story returns to Haruto and his friends, who are now carrying many clothes. Aki and Isato see the outfits, and Haruto explains that Celia and Miharu were the ones who chose them. So they try on the clothes and are pleased with how they look. Celia compliments them, saying they both look great. Suraru then informs the group that he was unable to find specific information about Satsuki and Takahisa, but shares that, according to the legend of the Six Sages, the heroes have arrived. He tells Miharu that the summoning process might have included her and the others. Everyone is surprised by this revelation. Aki asks if this is similar to being the main characters in a video game. Haruto responds that there are 6 heroes, so it is possible they are among them. Misato expresses the desire to search for their brother if he is in this world. Suraru advises them to first learn the language and customs of this world. Miharu agrees, saying they cannot keep relying on their brother. Aki decides that he will study again, even in this new world, and do everything he used to do back in his old world. Haruto adds that he knows some trustworthy people who can offer guidance on how to move forward. Later, the group gathers in the kitchen to prepare a meal, with everyone contributing. Once the meal is ready, Haruto thanks everyone for the food. Haruto prepared to leave for a mission, and his friends asked him to be cautious during his journey. He asked Aisha to take care of everyone while he was away, and she reassured him that the most important thing was for him to stay safe and return to them in one piece. Using teleportation magic, Haruto disappeared and traveled to the spirit village. Upon arriving, he encountered Latifa in the forest. She warmly welcomed him and asked how he was doing. At that moment, Seirei arrived, informing Haruto that they had sensed a significant distortion in the magical energy nearby, which alerted them to his return. Everyone in the village was eager to see him. Haruto explained that he had come to consult the village elders about something important. Alma quickly informed the head elder that Haruto wanted to meet with him. When Haruto met with the elders, he told them that the overwhelming flow of Auto and mana from the Straw region was caused by the Pillars of Light, which he believed to be a form of temporal magic used to summon people from another world. He mentioned rumors of 6 heroes who appeared during the war between humans and demons. The head elder asked why Haruto believed the heroes were summoned from another world. Haruto explained that he had seen 3 people from another world, though they weren't directly connected to the Pillars of Light. They had witnessed 2 individuals being pulled through a tear in space, confirming that those 2 had been summoned. Haruto believed the 3 people he encountered were victims of the summoning process. One of the elders asked if Haruto had communicated with people from another world before. Haruto responded that he understood their language because he had lived in that world in a past life. The elders were shocked, but Haruto asked to explain more later. For now, he hoped they understood his explanation. The elders agreed and decided to let the 3 summoned people and the person with them stay in the village for a short time. Haruto intended to find a way to return those 3 to their world. However, it was difficult for him to act freely while they were under his protection. His knowledge of space-time magic wasn't as advanced as the village experts. One elder asked about the other person Haruto mentioned. Haruto explained that she was his mentor, whom he had rescued from a political marriage. The elder praised Haruto for helping her and assured him that they would take care of everyone on his behalf. The elder requested that when the 4 individuals arrived, they must keep the village's secrets. Haruto agreed and promised to explain the importance of this to them. He then informed the elders that he would leave the next day to bring the group to the village. That night, Haruto apologized to Latifa for revealing his past life without asking her permission, but he explained it was necessary to clarify things for the elders. Latifa remained silent, considering whether she should share her own story, but Haruto reassured her that she didn't need to reveal anything she wasn't comfortable with. Latifa learned from Haruto that the people he mentioned were Japanese, which implied that Haruto had also revealed his own Japanese identity. He explained that if he hadn't told the elders, they would have questioned how he understood their language. Haruto asked Latifa to keep this information a secret between the two of them. Haruto then reminded her that even if other people from Japan appeared, she was still special to him. He asked if she remembered when he told her about his past life, mentioning that he had loved his childhood friend and had a younger sister who lived far away after their parents' divorce. His sister Sandy and Aki were now with him in this world, but they seemed to have no memory of him. Haruto believed they must be feeling emotionally unstable. He added that while he was no longer a Mako Haruto, he wanted to keep that part of himself a secret, shared only with Latifa. The next day, Haruto said goodbye to the villagers and told them he would return in 2 weeks. Latifa asked him to take care of himself, and Haruto left to rejoin his friends. If you're enjoying it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more anime recaps. The scene then shifts to the capital of the Beltram Kingdom, Beltran, where Lysolata is speaking with the king. She informed him about the events in the royal capital. The king thanked her and asked her to summon Duke Huguenot. He explained that their sacred stone had summoned a hero who was a girl about Lysolata's age. The king planned to invite ambassadors from neighboring kingdoms and host a banquet to present the hero. He asked Lysolata to deliver the invitation on his behalf. Lysolata humbly set him the king's task. The king then mentioned that their hero was a capable man named Sakata Hiroki and noted that in his culture, the family name came first. Lysolata was surprised and said that the name brought a sense of nostalgia, although she had never heard a name like that before. The king then explained that the hero summoned to their kingdom was named Zuki, and she was from the same country as Hiroki. He suggested it would be best for Lysolata to meet her. The king asked Charlotte to show Zuki the way to the meeting. When they arrived, Zuki welcomed them and expressed her happiness to meet Lysolata. Later that night, the scene shifted to a man speaking with a group of monsters. He remarked that it was no surprise the Rika Trading Company had made the town their operations base, as they were skilled at everything. He had found some excellent empty statues and instructed the monsters to search for anyone in the forest on the outskirts of Amandi who was surrounded by a large amount of magic. He ordered them to bring these people to him alive and to kill as many witnesses as possible before sunset the following day. He intended to use the opportunity to make some money and then disappear for a while. The following day, the scene returned to Haruto's house. Miharu asked Aki when Haruto would return. Aki, clearly frustrated, responded by saying that Miharu had been talking about Haruto since the previous night. She questioned how long they would continue living like this, mentioning that they should have started a new chapter at school and opened a new page in life. Aki also expressed concern about their missing friends and how she hadn't seen their mother or anyone else familiar. Miharu reassured Aki, telling her not to worry. She said they would search for their friends and believed that Haruto was doing a lot for them. All they could do was trust him. Aki then asked Miharu what she thought of Haruto, noting that Miharu usually got nervous around men but acted normally with him. Miharu replied that they relied on him and that she thought he was a kind person. Suddenly, outside the house, they encountered monsters, causing them to panic. Miharu urged everyone to hurry back inside, but one of the monsters charged toward them. I stepped in and attacked the monster. Meanwhile, Masato and Celia heard the sounds of the battle. Celia told Masato to stay put, while Miharu and Aki, terrified, asked Ai what the creature was. I explained that it was a monster, likely drawn to the area by the magical energy of the barrier. She urged them to go back inside, remembering Haruto's words about protecting everyone. She declared that she would keep them safe. Just then, Celia arrived to help Ai and told her to leave the monsters to her. As the creatures approached, Haruto finally arrived and struck one of the monsters. He thought to himself that the resistance of the monster was incredibly strong. He asked Ai if she knew anything about them, but she said she didn't, only noting that the ones with a darker color were usually stronger. Haruto faced the monster as it charged at him. He observed that it moved in straight lines and had a wide sweeping attack. He struck it with his sword, noticing that its life force was incredibly strong. When the monster finally died, it revealed a red gem. I informed him that she had taken care of the rest of the monsters. Haruto thanked Celia, but then glanced back at the dead monster, thinking that the way it moved its mouth at the end was strange, almost as if it had been saying, "Please kill me." Aki apologized to Haruto for going outside, admitting that it was her fault. Haruto reassured her and then mentioned that he smelled something delicious, saying that he was starving. He suggested they move to another house. Afterward, it was revealed that the monsters had killed many people. A man commented that one group of monsters hadn't returned, wondering if they had been killed. He noted that taking down a group of resurrected, enhanced beings wouldn't be easy, and that their absence would delay his plan. He then decided to create a new empty doll, wondering how many would cry this time. Haruto prepared to leave for a mission, and his friends asked him to be cautious during his journey. He asked Aisha to take care of everyone while he was away, and she reassured him that the most important thing was for him to stay safe and return to them in one piece. Using teleportation magic, Haruto disappeared and traveled to the spirit village. Upon arriving, he encountered Latifa in the forest. She warmly welcomed him and asked how he was doing. At that moment, Seirei arrived, informing Haruto that they had sensed a significant distortion in the magical energy nearby, which alerted them to his return. Everyone in the village was eager to see him. Haruto explained that he had come to consult the village elders about something important. Alma quickly informed the head elder that Haruto wanted to meet with him. When Haruto met with the elders, he told them that the overwhelming flow of Auto and mana from the Straw region was caused by the Pillars of Light, which he believed to be a form of temporal magic used to summon people from another world. He mentioned rumors of 6 heroes who appeared during the war between humans and demons. The head elder asked why Haruto believed the heroes were summoned from another world. Haruto explained that he had seen 3 people from another world, though they weren't directly connected to the Pillars of Light. They had witnessed 2 individuals being pulled through a tear in space, confirming that those 2 had been summoned. Haruto believed the 3 people he encountered were victims of the summoning process. One of the elders asked if Haruto had communicated with people from another world before. Haruto responded that he understood their language because he had lived in that world in a past life. The elders were shocked, but Haruto asked to explain more later. For now, he hoped they understood his explanation. The elders agreed and decided to let the 3 summoned people and the person with them stay in the village for a short time. Haruto intended to find a way to return those 3 to their world. However, it was difficult for him to act freely while they were under his protection. His knowledge of space-time magic wasn't as advanced as the village experts. One elder asked about the other person Haruto mentioned. Haruto explained that she was his mentor, whom he had rescued from a political marriage. The elder praised Haruto for helping her and assured him that they would take care of everyone on his behalf. The elder requested that when the 4 individuals arrived, they must keep the village's secrets. Haruto agreed and promised to explain the importance of this to them. He then informed the elders that he would leave the next day to bring the group to the village. That night, Haruto apologized to Latifa for revealing his past life without asking her permission, but he explained it was necessary to clarify things for the elders. Latifa remained silent, considering whether she should share her own story, but Haruto reassured her that she didn't need to reveal anything she wasn't comfortable with. Latifa learned from Haruto that the people he mentioned were Japanese, which implied that Haruto had also revealed his own Japanese identity. He explained that if he hadn't told the elders, they would have questioned how he understood their language. Haruto asked Latifa to keep this information a secret between the 2 of them. Haruto then reminded her that even if other people from Japan appeared, she was still special to him. He asked if she remembered when he told her about his past life, mentioning that he had loved his childhood friend and had a younger sister who lived far away after their parents' divorce. His sister Sandy and Aki were now with him in this world, but they seemed to have no memory of him. Haruto believed they must be feeling emotionally unstable. He added that while he was no longer a Mako Haruto, he wanted to keep that part of himself a secret, shared only with Latifa. The next day, Haruto said goodbye to the villagers and told them he would return in 2 weeks. Latifa asked him to take care of himself, and Haruto left to rejoin his friends. If you're enjoying it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more anime recaps. The scene then shifts to the capital of the Beltram Kingdom, Beltran, where Lysolata is speaking with the king. She informed him about the events in the royal capital. The king thanked her and asked her to summon Duke Huguenot. He explained that their sacred stone had summoned a hero who was a girl about Lysolata's age. The king planned to invite ambassadors from neighboring kingdoms and host a banquet to present the hero. He asked Lysolata to deliver the invitation on his behalf. Lysolata humbly set him the king's task. The king then mentioned that their hero was a capable man named Sakata Hiroki and noted that in his culture, the family name came first. Lysolata was surprised and said that the name brought a sense of nostalgia, although she had never heard a name like that before. The king then explained that the hero summoned to their kingdom was named Zuki, and she was from the same country as Hiroki. He suggested it would be best for Lysolata to meet her. The king asked Charlotte to show Zuki the way to the meeting. When they arrived, Zuki welcomed them and expressed her happiness to meet Lysolata. Later that night, the scene shifted to a man speaking with a group of monsters. He remarked that it was no surprise the Rika Trading Company had made the town their operations base. as they were skilled at everything. He had found some excellent empty statues and instructed the monsters to search for anyone in the forest on the outskirts of Amandi who was surrounded by a large amount of magic. He ordered them to bring these people to him alive and to kill as many witnesses as possible before sunset the following day. He intended to use the opportunity to make some money and then disappear for a while. The following day, the scene returned to Haruto's house. Miharu asked Aki when Haruto would return. Aki, clearly frustrated, responded by saying that Miharu had been talking about Haruto since the previous night. She questioned how long they would continue living like this, mentioning that they should have started a new chapter at school and opened a new page in life. Aki also expressed concern about their missing friends and how she hadn't seen their mother or anyone else familiar. Miharu reassured Aki, telling her not to worry. She said they would search for their friends and believed that Haruto was doing a lot for them. All they could do was trust him. Aki then asked Miharu what she thought of Haruto, noting that Miharu usually got nervous around men but acted normally with him. Miharu replied that they relied on him and that she thought he was a kind person. Suddenly, outside the house, they encountered monsters, causing them to panic. Miharu urged everyone to hurry back inside, but one of the monsters charged toward them. I stepped in and attacked the monster. Meanwhile, Masato and Celia heard the sounds of the battle. Celia told Masato to stay put, while Miharu and Aki, terrified, asked Ai what the creature was. I explained that it was a monster, likely drawn to the area by the magical energy of the barrier. She urged them to go back inside, remembering Haruto's words about protecting everyone. She declared that she would keep them safe. Just then, Celia arrived to help Ai and told her to leave the monsters to her. As the creatures approached, Haruto finally arrived and struck one of the monsters. He thought to himself that the resistance of the monster was incredibly strong. He asked Ai if she knew anything about them, but she said she didn't, only noting that the ones with a darker color were usually stronger. Haruto faced the monster as it charged at him. He observed that it moved in straight lines and had a wide sweeping attack. He struck it with his sword, noticing that its life force was incredibly strong. When the monster finally died, it revealed a red gem. I informed him that she had taken care of the rest of the monsters. Haruto thanked Celia, but then glanced back at the dead monster, thinking that the way it moved its mouth at the end was strange, almost as if it had been saying, "Please kill me." Aki apologized to Haruto for going outside, admitting that it was her fault. Haruto reassured her and then mentioned that he smelled something delicious, saying that he was starving. He suggested they move to another house. Afterward, it was revealed that the monsters had killed many people. A man commented that one group of monsters hadn't returned, wondering if they had been killed. He noted that taking down a group of resurrected, enhanced beings wouldn't be easy, and that their absence would delay his plan. He then decided to create a new empty doll, wondering how many would cry this time. This brings an end to our episode. Thanks for watching. The next morning, a dragon soared over Nor, the land of Decretia. Nearby, a ship's captain spotted it, and sensing danger, chose to make an emergency landing. Lysila praised his wise decision, and the captain felt honored by her words. Meanwhile, Arya pointed out what looked like the enchanted airship of Duke Huguenot's family. Soon the Duke, along with Baronet Boxa and the hero Sakata Hiroki, greeted the crew. Hiroki asked if Lysila had met the hero of Beltram, and she confirmed she had, even delivering an invitation to him. Curious, she asked why so many were gathered here. Hiroki explained that Huguenot had business in Galark and was stopping in Amand, so he accompanied him. However, they'd encountered a dragon in the sky. Huguenot said they needed a meeting to share information, and Baronet Boxa offered his mansion, though he worried it might be too small. Meanwhile, Rio and his group admired Marcus Roden's land. Though his lord had been exiled from the royal capital, Rio was impressed by the lively place. After a brief distraction, Rio and Tanya lost sight of Aisha, only to find her at a market stall snacking. Embarrassed, Rio offered to pay, but the vendor said her meal was already covered by a man who'd worked preparing the hero's ship and wanted to share his good fortune. He also mentioned that the hero's ship had left that morning with the princess heading for Galark. That night in Nor, Lysila told Hiroki that humans were still unprepared to face a dragon. If the worst happened, they might even need to evacuate the city. The Baron reassured her that the citizens of Nor were safe under his care, and she thanked him for his efforts. She then asked Duke Huguenot's thoughts, but he seemed uncertain. Hiroki asked what she planned to do, and she replied that she would return to Amand by land to avoid provoking the dragon. They would leave in the morning to arrive before nightfall, Hiroki found it reckless that Lissalot would travel with only her servants, but she assured him they were well trained in martial arts. Rowena gently reminded Hiroki not to pry into others' choices, and he understood. Still, Hiroki insisted on accompanying her, as he had pledged to protect the Duke and his allies. The Duke affirmed that Lissalot would not be his responsibility if anything happened, and he asked Flora's opinion. She agreed they couldn't leave Hiroki on his own. Hiroki assured them he would be there to help if any trouble arose. With determination, he summoned his divine weapon, Yamada no Orochi, to be ready. The next morning, as the convoy prepared to depart, a warrior named Raymond Brandt, a captain under Duke Huguenot, introduced himself. He expressed sympathy for Aria's family, and she thanked him for his kindness, adding that Lissalot had received her warmly. Juvenet then announced that the hero had arrived, and the group set off for Amand. After a while, Hiroki mentioned that traveling by carriage wasn't so bad. Rona reminded him to stay alert. Lissalot noticed Flora seemed uncomfortable on the bumpy ride and encouraged her to speak up if she felt ill. Flora, a girl with purple hair, said she wasn't much of a talker and preferred to listen. Lissalot apologized if she seemed intrusive but expressed her eagerness to know more about Flora, who was happy to chat. Hiroki chimed in, asking them to include him in their conversation. Suddenly, Iria ordered the carriage to stop. A monster was nearby, and she instructed the fighters to prepare for battle. One of Lissalot's servants activated a lever, triggering a defense system that shielded the passengers. As the soldiers scanned the area, they noticed an overwhelming number of monsters lurking in the forest. Eden ordered them to raise their shields against the stones hurled by the enemies, while she and other servants cast a magical barrier. Raymond called for the wounded to be brought near the carriage, instructing Huguenot to stay inside. Aria joined the captain in setting up a front defense, while a soldier reported that monsters were blocking the road behind. Soon, hundreds of enemies appeared, attacking relentlessly. Aria urged Lissalot to stay safe in the carriage, which could withstand a few rocks. Then she told the mage she would take out the enemies ahead, instructing them to lower their barriers and advance individually once she began her attack. She ordered the knights to hold the line. With the strategy set, Aria unleashed a powerful magic cannon, destroying many monsters, then charged at high speed, cutting down hordes. Her companions understood why she was called the head-cutting princess. The second in command directed 4 allies to guard another area while she, Natalie, and Chloe managed their section. She told Chloe to stay behind the knights and pick off weaker monsters with the photon bullets, careful not to hit their allies. Then the leader joined Natalie and they activated their physical enchantment to join the fray. Watching from above, a mysterious man noted that this skilled maid must be Lissalot Krisha's right hand. He observed the strong defenses on both sides and Lissalot's capable team, yet he saw weaknesses he could exploit. Meanwhile, inside the carriage, Hiroki and the others were unsure how to react. Hiroki grew anxious, and Lissalot reassured him that the warriors outside were professionals. Yet Hiroki pointed out that, despite their skills, they hadn't resolved the battle quickly. Flora encouraged him to trust the others, but he struggled, as he didn't know these soldiers. Flora lost her calm at his distrust, and Lissalot gently took her hand, admitting she was scared too, though ashamed to show it. Lissalot asked if she could hold Flora's hand, and Flora agreed. Inspired, Hiroki held Rona's hand, promising to protect her with his Yamada no Orochi. She responded by hugging him. Suddenly, a heavy object struck the carriage, shaking it violently. At this, Hiroki's patience snapped. He summoned his weapon and stepped outside, bringing Rona with him. Flora suggested she and Lissalot join, but Lissalot told her to wait while she assessed the situation. Exiting, she activated her magical barrier and scanned the monstrous threats lurking in the forest. Lissalot pulled Flora outside, regrouping with Hiroki and Rona. Hiroki, unusually tense, muttered that a hero with cheat-like powers should be the one leading the battle. Lissalot then asked Rona to protect Flora so she could tend to the wounded with her magic. Leaving Hiroki concerned about an impending twist, Lissalot moved among the injured to heal them. Soon, Ira arrived, reporting heavy pressure on both the front and rear lines. Lissalot assured her she trusted her abilities, and Iria hurried back into the battle. Meanwhile, the hooded man watched as Arya headed to the rear, thinking his distraction had succeeded. With skillful swordplay, Arya cut through the enemy forces, leaving Raymond Brandt in awe. She then returned to him, announcing she would clear the monsters in this area, and asked him to support her on the flanks. Just then, a new threat emerged: a Minotaur, a legendary beast from the Divine Demon War. Recognizing it, Rona felt dread as the massive creature approached Lissalot. To defend her, Arya intensified her attacks, drawing the Minotaur's attention but the creature was powerful enough to fling the carriage aside like it was weightless. The Minotaur then reached to crush Flora, but Liselot intervened just in time. At that moment, Rio appeared like a shadow, slicing off the Minotaur's hand. As the beast's sword fell, Rio used it to pierce the creature's back. Afterward, he announced he was here to help, and Flora remembered when he'd first come to her rescue against a Minotaur. Another Minotaur soon emerged, and Rio raised his enchanted sword, charging at it. Blocking the monster's strike, his blade created a hurricane, pushing it back through the forest. Yet, the Minotaur returned, angrier than before. Rai evaded a deadly blow and unleashed a swift technique, slicing the creature multiple times and defeating it instantly. With the Minotaur's fall, the soldiers cheered Ryo's arrival, and the remaining monsters retreated. After sheathing his sword, Rio turned to the allies and spotted Flora, who was as moved by their reunion as he was. After sheathing his sword, Rio turned to the others and noticed Flora. She was overcome with emotion, just like him, as if she could not believe the unexpected reunion. Meanwhile, Liselot Kreisha expressed her gratitude for being saved during such a troubling time. She introduced herself as the ruler of Amand and also presented the second princess of Beltram and the current head of Duke Huguenot's house, Gustav. Liselot noticed Flora acting strangely and asked if something was wrong. Rita wondered if Rio had unintentionally been rude. Gathering her courage, Flora asked Rio if they had met before. Rio, however, believed they had not. Flora seemed surprised, certain she recognized him. Gustav asked if Rio was a noble from another land, but Rio clarified that he was simply a wandering swordsman with no ties to royalty. Gustav admired Rio's talent and was pleased to meet such a skilled swordsman. Just then, Chloe and the maids recognized Haruto. Chloe excitedly mentioned helping him at the Rika Guild, and Liselot was surprised to learn that such a remarkable man had been her customer. She bowed to thank him, and the maids followed her lead. Hiroki Sakata then arrived, confidently introducing himself as a hero. Hearing Hiroki's name, Rio wondered if he might also be Japanese, but kept his thoughts to himself. Instead, he acknowledged Hiroki as the hero he had heard about. Hiroki, full of himself, complimented Rio's strength, which embarrassed Rio. Liselot found it amusing that someone who had defeated a Minotaur could feel shy from praise. Hiroki abruptly ended the conversation, calling Flora and Rona to board the carriage and continue their journey. Flora, distracted by Rio, hesitated, but eventually she followed. Rio decided not to reveal too much about himself to Flora, but reflected on his unexpected meeting with Liselot, a powerful noble. He offered to retrieve the damaged carriage flung aside during the battle. Liselot agreed, suggesting they check its condition. Rio, surprised, recognized the blonde woman as Arya, whom his group had seen earlier during their journey. Sally recalled Arya from their academy days, while Celia noted that Arya worked for Duke Krisha's house. During the conversation, Aisha sensed a powerful monster, which led to the earlier battle. At the carriage site, Rio used his sword, enhanced with spiritual arts, to repair it. Liselot praised his skill, assuming his weapon was an ancient artifact. Rio humbly accepted the compliment, but kept the truth about his spiritual arts to himself. Later, as the maid served drinks, Cosette joked with Chloe about introducing her to Rio. Their playful argument was interrupted by Liselot, who reminded them to focus on their work. The drinks were served to celebrate the victory, and Arya informed Liselot that the carriage was ready. Liselot thanked Rio for his brilliant idea that saved the transport. Cosette offered Rio a specially prepared fruit drink to relieve his fatigue, leaving the maids whispering about her behavior. Meanwhile, Gustav worried about removing the Minotaur's giant sword blocking the road. Hirakaki confidently approached the weapon and, to everyone's amazement, lifted it with sheer brute strength. The crowd cheered as if he had achieved something extraordinary, and Hirakaki basked in their admiration. As the group prepared to depart, Rio wondered aloud if it was truly fine for him to join the convoy. Gustav, proud of his heroic efforts in saving everyone, warmly reassures Rio that it is an honor to carry him wherever he wishes to go. Lieselot, thinking of their arrival in Amand, mentions that she would like to formally express her gratitude to their savior. Embarrassed by her words, Rio asks her not to bow. Hiroki agrees, pointing out that someone as important as a ruler should not bow easily to others. Flustered by their reactions, Lieselot quickly apologizes. After that, Hiroki acknowledges Haruto's good manners and grants him permission to join their journey. As always, Rio is simply honored to be given such an opportunity. While this is happening, Latifa is teaching the Japanese students the language of straw. After finishing the lesson, she compliments her students on their rapid progress. Misato, excited by the praise, proudly calls himself a prodigy. His sister Aki quickly bursts his bubble, reminding him that their excellent teacher deserves the credit. When Misato is called away to fish, he eagerly leaves the table without hesitation. Aki tries to remind him about his spiritual arts training, but Misato only wants to play and is already neglecting his duties. Miharu, noticing his playful attitude, remarks that the magical artifacts they use allow him to keep up with the beast children. She notes how much fun he seems to be having. Latifa adds that using these artifacts is also beneficial for their spiritual arts practice. However, she points out that apart from Misato, the female students need to put more effort into their training. Later, during a training session supervised by Orphea, the students practice summoning water spheres. Misato manages to control the water for a reasonable amount of time, but Aki struggles. She grows frustrated, feeling something might be wrong with her. She wonders if she simply lacks talent. Seeing her discouragement, Orphea ends the session and invites the students for tea. Aki, still upset, decides to take a walk instead. As she strolls, Aki comes across two beast children pretending to cook with an empty pot. The sight brings back a fond childhood memory. She remembers playing a similar game with Haruto and Miharu. Back then, Haruto had promised her that they would always be together, but one day he was taken away. The broken promise left young Aki heartbroken and filled with despair. While wandering, Latifa notices Aki looking sad and gently encourages her to return home. Back at the house, the group enjoys a hearty meal. Sarah comments on how long Misato has been away. Seizing the moment, Aki jokes about how scared her brother was when he first arrived, but notes how much he has relaxed since then. Miharu agrees, saying she understands Misato's feelings because everything was so new and overwhelming at first. Curious, Aki asks Latifa how she and Haruto adjusted to life in the village. Latifa admits it was tough in the beginning. Orphea shares a story about how they first met Rio. At that time, Rio had been camped near the village's protective barrier, which kept humans away. They found Latifa there and mistakenly believed that Rio had kidnapped her. Using spiritual arts, they put Latifa to sleep and detained Rio. However, they later realized Rio was helping Latifa deal with her nightmares. Alma adds that they rushed to help Rio once they understood the truth. Later, Misato returns with a massive fish for dinner. The fish leaps from his hands onto the table, causing chaos and laughter. After dinner, the students practice spiritual arts again. Aki, despite her struggles, remains determined to improve. Meanwhile, Latifa and Aki share a heartfelt conversation. Latifa opens up about her past as a slave to a noble in Beltrum and how Rio freed her and brought her to the village. She expresses her gratitude for meeting Rio and her desire to support him. Aki relates to her feelings, recalling her own experiences of betrayal and loneliness before her mother remarried and she gained two brothers, Takahisa and Masato. The next morning, Aki wakes early to train. Though her progress is slow, she refuses to give up. When she returns home, Orphea surprises her by wearing a school uniform, explaining that she wanted to dress up for a special breakfast. Aki is thrilled to discover that her friends have made an apple pie using Minoru's recipe. As apple pie is one of Aki's favorites, she is deeply touched by the gesture. The group gathers to enjoy the pie, and Aki is certain Masato will love it when he wakes up. They decide to bake another pie for Haruto, and Aki lends Latifa her uniform so she can surprise him. Elsewhere in the Proxia Empire's capital of Nidgard, Emperor Nidal Proxia is informed by Lucius about troubling events in Beltrum. Lucius warns that Duke Arbor's downfall could lead to serious consequences. Arbor himself appears, revealing his plan to capture Flor and Beltram to overcome the challenges ahead. The scene shifts to the kingdom of Gurk, where Lady Lizelot says goodbye to Harto. She thanks him for his company and tells him that she will send a servant to help him in the morning. After she leaves, Arya offers to show Harto around the house. Next, Harto meets Cecilia. She greets him kindly, thanks him for waiting, and asks how he is feeling. Harto tells her he is fine but needs rest. He also points out that they seem to have attracted attention in the area. He explains that Lady Lizelot has arranged for them to stay for a few days and that everything should be fine. He also mentions that he was traveling with Princess Flora from Batram and Miss Rowena, who is from one of the great families. Cecilia asks if these people noticed anything strange about him. Harto admits that Princess Flora might have sensed something because she is very perceptive. However, he took precautions by changing his hair color, so he believes there is no reason to worry. Cecilia then asks if Amanda should stay behind, but Harto acknowledges that there are risks. He stresses that it is important to build a good relationship with Lady Lizelot, especially since he may be seeking the hero of Galark. Making strong connections with powerful people in the kingdom could be very important. Cecilia agrees but reminds him to be careful, as Lady Lizelot is a well-known and capable person. She also promises to support him whenever needed. Later, Harto asks Cecilia if they can meet the next day so she can teach him how to behave properly in a noble society. She agrees, and the scene shifts to Lizelot, who is speaking with Gustav. Gustav praises Lizelot's servant Arya for doing an excellent job. However, Lizelot questions whether Harto truly has the strength needed to change the outcome of the situation. Gustav comments that while Harto is strong with the Minotaur's sword, he lacks real combat experience. Lizelot counters that Harto's natural connection to the sword shows that he has great potential. She speculates that the divine power of the sword might allow him to gain strength without having to undergo extensive training, which confuses Gustav. To ensure Harto's safety, they decide to arrange mock battles with knights to test his skills. Lizelot reflects on how Harto's first battle was much more intense than expected. She suspects the Duke sees Harto only as a symbol of power for now. The Duke joins the conversation and mentions that without Harto, they would have been overwhelmed. He recalls how Harto used the Minotaur sword to defeat enemies with ease, something that would have been impossible without controlling the cursed weapon. The Duke asks Lizelot for her opinion on Harto. Lizelot observes that Harto is an excellent swordsman, but his noble demeanor suggests there is more to him. She suspects that he might come from a fallen noble family. The Duke asks Lizelot for her opinion on Harto. This is due to the ongoing investigation into demonic activity and reports of missing adventurers. Meanwhile, two men, Alphonse and Stuart, discuss Harto while heading to a restaurant with some women. They wonder about his mysterious background but are interrupted by their instructor, who scolds them for not keeping their composure. When they arrive at the restaurant, they find that the private room they wanted to use is already taken. The scene shifts again to Harto and his companions enjoying a warm bath in their room. As they prepare to rest, they hear a commotion outside, which they realize involves some nobles. Harto steps outside to apologize for the disturbance. Alphonse and Stuart recognize him as the one who saved their group of knights earlier. They ask to use the room, and Harto agrees, saying they are almost finished with their meal. The nobles invite him to join them, but Harto politely refuses, explaining that they are tired from their journey. Alphonse begins to mock Harto, suggesting that he is only a skilled swordsman and nothing more. Stuart tries to calm him down, but Alphonse continues to act disrespectfully, ignoring the waiter's warnings. Alphonse mocks Harto for his supposed lack of noble manners and continues to provoke him. Harto remains calm and explains that although he comes from an ordinary background, he will not tolerate disrespect. When Alphonse threatens to attack, Harto quickly takes him down. Stuart tries to intervene but ends up the same way. The incident reaches Lizelot, who is displeased with the noble's arrogance. She grows concerned about how Harto might view the situation and asks her maid about his whereabouts. The maid tells her that Harto is staying at an inn, so Lizelot prepares to visit him and apologize. The next morning, Lizelot gets ready to visit Haruto. She asks her maid to make the necessary preparations for their trip. Meanwhile, Duke Uchant is upset with his son Alphonse and tells Lizelot to apologize to Haruto on his behalf. The Duke emphasizes that he trusts Haruto and his abilities. The scene shifts to the Duke confronting Alphonse and Stuart. The Duke, clearly disappointed, scolds his son for his disgraceful actions, despite previous warnings. He announces that because of their behavior, they are now cut off from his wealth. Both Alphonse and Stuart are shocked by this. They protest, claiming they only fought with an ordinary swordsman. The Duke sharply responds, saying that Haruto was no ordinary swordsman. He explains that Haruto killed 3 minotaurs, something far beyond Alphonse's ability. Stuart suggests that if he had been using a cursed sword, he could have done the same. The Duke dismisses this excuse and gives them a chance to redeem themselves. He tells Alphonse that he will assist Lizelot in investigating the forest west of Amandi, and after that, he will be placed under house arrest in Rodania. Alphonse reluctantly agrees, but the Duke insists that Alphonse must first apologize to Haruto. The next morning, Haruto has breakfast with Cecilia and Aisha. During the meal, Haruto suggests that Cecilia should stay with Aisha in the stone house for more comfort, but Cecilia refuses, saying she wants to stay close to him for his safety. Their conversation is interrupted when Lizelot arrives. She introduces herself to Cecilia and Aisha, who greet her warmly. Haruto politely asks his companions to wait for him in their room. Lizelot explains that Duke Uchant wants to apologize for the previous incident and asks Haruto if he has any requests. Haruto asks for a written letter to make sure the matter is properly resolved. Lizelot agrees and invites him to the palace, asking him to bring his friends along. Haruto declines, saying they are too tired from their journey, and promises to come alone. At the palace, Haruto meets Duke Uchant. The Duke expresses his willingness to take responsibility for his son's actions and leaves the matter of how to resolve it to Lizelot. Haruto agrees to let the offenders apologize. When Alphonse and Stuart come to offer their apologies, Haruto accepts, though Alphonse clearly still holds some resentment. Later, Haruto meets Princess Flora, who is happy to see him again. As they talk, Lizelot praises the palace chef, and Haruto mentions the difficulties he faces when trying to recreate rice dishes from his world. The prince samples the food and is very impressed. Lizelot and Haruto continue talking about his past, and he reveals that he has been traveling alone since he was 11, after losing his parents. When asked why he travels alone, Haruto explains that he wants to connect with people who were close to his parents. The conversation shifts to Haruto's future. Duke Uchant offers him a position in Blunrim, praising his skills and promising a good salary. Haruto expresses interest but doesn't commit right away. The prince comments on the importance of nurturing heroes with the power to shape the future. He also mentions that a female hero, Siatsuki, from the kingdom of Yelark, will be announced soon. Haruto is surprised to hear her name, as he recognizes her as a friend of Miharu, who was also looking for her. As the meeting ends, Lizelot mentions an invitation from Prince Hiraki, but Haruto finds the idea of being paired with a fake hero somewhat annoying. The Duke reassures him that a hero from Centisnella will also be attending the event, highlighting how important it is. The scene then shifts to a forest where knights are preparing for their mission. One of the knights complains about having to protect common people, but he is interrupted by a mysterious man who tells them that the forest is now free of demons. Early in the morning, Mai Haru is practicing water magic in the garden. Her mind occasionally wanders to thoughts of Haruto, but she quickly refocuses, determined to master her skills. Her friends soon arrive and encourage her, praising her dedication and cheerful spirit. Touched by their support, Mai Haru thanks them sincerely and explains her motivation. While they enjoy peace, Haruto works tirelessly to protect everyone. She doesn't want to become a burden to him and is committed to improving herself. One of her friends compliments her ability to summon water so quickly, noting that her connection with Aisha has greatly enhanced her magical talent. Mai Haru agrees and promises to thank Aisha when she returns. The scene shifts to Aisha, who's in her room. Latifa enters and brings her a cup of special tea. As Aisha takes a sip, she finds it just as delicious as when Haruto makes it. Latifa reveals with a smile that she learned the recipe from him. In the forest where Beltram Knights are patrolling, Duke Seirei approaches them, asking if they are adventurers. The Knights deny this and question his presence instead. Seirei immediately recognizes them as members of Princess Flora's guard, surprising the Knights with his insight. Unfazed by their questions, Seirei declares his intent to challenge them and draws a powerful sword. The Knights attempt to subdue him, but Seirei's exceptional strength and speed, enhanced by physical magic, easily overpower them. He defeats their attacks effortlessly, terrifying Alphonse, the captain of the Knights. Alphonse orders a retreat to call for reinforcements, but Seirei warns them that he will not stop pursuing them. True to his word, Seirei chases them down repeatedly. In desperation, Alphonse offers Seirei money to spare them. Seirei accepts the offer but makes it clear that his mission remains unchanged. Meanwhile, Haruto is preparing to leave after spending time with Duke Huguenot, Liz, and Flora. Liz thanks him for his assistance and mentions that she will send an envoy to visit him. She also invites Haruto to return to a maid, promising to host a tea party when he does. Haruto agrees with a warm smile and bids them farewell. Later, Liz notices Flora looking troubled as they sit together with Haruki. When asked, Haruki mentions that Flora has seemed distracted since the demon attack, as if something is weighing on her mind. Pressed further, Flora initially denies her anxiety, but grows flustered when Haruki teases that she may be thinking about Haruto. Flora clarifies that she has been trying to decide how best to express gratitude for Haruto's help, emphasizing her role as a representative. Hiroki reassures her, adding that it's natural to feel admiration for someone as remarkable as Haruto, who often inspires strong emotions in those around him. The scene darkens ominously as it shifts to Alphonse witnessing a horrifying event. Nearby knights begin transforming into demons, their bodies grotesquely altered. Paralyzed with fear, the Alphonse begs for mercy. A mysterious figure steps forward, calmly announcing their intent to reshape the soldier's body and soul. They instruct Lucius to assist, though Lucius hesitates, questioning the figure's decisions. Unyielding, the figure explains that they have no choice but to use a gem to enhance their strength. Ignoring Alphonse's frantic pleas, they place the gem into his body. A blinding beam of light erupts, and an ominous glow appears in Alphonse's eyes, signaling the start of a terrifying transformation. The scene shifts back to the castle, where Duke Huguenot is discussing the situation with a guard. He notes with concern that the search team has not yet returned, suggesting that the demons in the forest might be more numerous or more powerful than they had anticipated. To address this, he orders the guard to take action and considers deploying advanced military units if needed. The Duke's worry deepens as he remembers that Alphonse, the knight captain, is part of the missing search team. Meanwhile, Princess Flora sits alone, lost in thought. She questions her earlier behavior, wondering if she acted oddly. Her mind drifts to Haruto, and she begins to suspect that he might actually be Master Ryo, the hero who once saved her, despite his different name and appearance. Guilt gnaws at her as she recalls her past actions, which she believes were unforgivable. Elsewhere in the castle, Lizelot meets with Duke Huguenot to apologize for not sending her troops earlier. Huguenot reassures her, explaining that it was his decision to deploy the standard search team of knights. However, he admits they may need to rethink their strategy as the team's fate remains uncertain. Lizelot agrees and proposes sending another team at sunrise. She mentions that some demons escaped into the forest and warns that minotaurs might still be lurking. Huguenot adds that even stronger demons could be out there, and Liz nods, reflecting that the previous battle didn't seem to eliminate the entire threat. Liz suggests involving Arya in the investigation and equipping skilled soldiers and servants with cursed swords for extra protection. Huguenot offers to send his knights, but Liz declines, cautioning against risking more of his forces. When Huguenot proposes seeking Haruto's help again, Liz hesitates. While she acknowledges Haruto's capability, She points out that he is a civilian with someone to protect and should not be unnecessarily involved. They ultimately decide to hire adventurers instead, as the threat of minotaurs attacking Amadeus grows more likely. The scene shifts to the mysterious figure, who observes the transformed demons, referring to them as his children. He comments on their progress and casts a spell to conceal them from detection. Turning to Lucius, the figure instructs him to prepare for an attack at sunrise. Lucius, irritated, complains that he needs rest and suggests relying on the newly created demons. These creations, he argues, are stronger and more dependable. The figure acknowledges that Alphonse's transformation is especially aggressive, with enhanced combat abilities and independent thought. Though harder to control, this creature is expected to play a pivotal role in the upcoming siege. Elsewhere, Aisha shares her concerns with Haruto. She explains that the energy of the demons feels scattered and strange, making it difficult to determine their exact location despite their apparent strength. This anomaly has been troubling her since the previous day, and she warns Haruto to stay vigilant. The scene changes to the western gate, where a guard spots figures approaching on the main road. Initially relieved, thinking they are knights returning from the search, the guard's relief turns to horror as he realizes they are demons. Acting quickly, he sounds the alarm by ringing the castle's bell, and the entire castle becomes highly alert. This brings an end to our episode.